All right, well, let's jump right into it today. I hope you had a great Lord's Day yesterday, a good weekend as well. And I hope that this week coming up is a productive one for you and your family. Let's jump right into it. Last week, I actually wrote an article for the upcoming Fight, Laugh, Feast magazine, which, by the way, if you're not subscribed to the Fight, Laugh, Feast magazine, it is very good. I highly recommend it. And, I took advantage of an opportunity I was given because the topic of this month's or this quarter's magazine was perfect for an article that I've kind of wanted to write for a while. And it's an article against NASA and how ridiculous I find NASA and how I don't think NASA is worth funding and I don't think NASA is a very good organization and stuff like that. Now, I could have written this article about any government agency, right? Because the point of the article is that government bureaucracy, when it's outside of the realm of what the Bible prescribes for government. So basically, any government agency or organization that does not execute justice upon the wrongdoer is illegitimate and necessarily takes a messianic, kind of posture towards what they do, right? So any agency, anyone you can think of that's not related to executing justice upon the wrongdoer, and they've got some kind of messianic story that they're promoting. So whether it's the Department of Education or Department of Energy or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, whatever it is, the Federal Reserve, they've got some kind of a plan for salvation that's going to help us, bring ourselves out of the ashes and bring heaven on earth and that kind of thing. And NASA is no exception. Now, I was thinking about choosing a different agency, but I figured that it was a good opportunity to rail against NASA because it's a bit of a sacred cow, to be honest. And, I'm a glutton for punishment. So there you go. So look forward to that. I'm not going to reveal too much about that article in this video. One of the other things I was thinking about doing was the Department of Education, because this is a big one. Department of Education has a salvation plan for sure, and it's salvation by education. And so they promote all kinds of anti-biblical, anti-Christ doctrines in public school, and they do it on your dime and my dime, and they do it relentlessly. I mean, if you look at the curriculum of a typical public school, I mean, it's absolutely anti-Christ in almost every way. Yes, they learn, 2 + 2 = 4. That's great. Although I don't know how much longer they're going to be learning that kind of stuff. But they do learn some good, true facts. But the overall story that public school teaches children is completely against Christ. It's completely against the rule of Christ, the reign of Christ, and the gospel of Jesus Christ as well. And so I found it quite hilarious that this article in the Baptist News Global by one of the executive directors of this organization, or actually, hold on, let me double check that. He might be the executive director of something else. Yes, no, he is the executive director of this. So he's the one who kind of runs the show here at Baptist News Global. He wrote this article that's pro-public school in it's the cringiest, sort of most pathetic way that I could ever imagine. And it really shows you sort of the messianic nature of a bureaucracy very well. And sadly, in this case, the messianic role that a Christian gives to the government, at least in the realm of education. Now, it's interesting. Now, the education is actually the first time that I knew I was onto something with my YouTube channel. So if you want to thank somebody for the existence of my YouTube channel, you can thank Jared C. Wilson. Because Jared C. Wilson once, I think I had started doing a few videos. So, if you look at the beginning of my content, you'll see I did like a video every, other week or something like that. It wasn't like something I went in, kind of guns blazing. So I had done a few videos already, but I wasn't planning on making it sort of a regular thing. And then I'll never forget this. I had made a Facebook post, if I'm not mistaken. This is a long time ago. A Facebook post about public school and why public school is a terrible idea and a Christian should not support public school, and that, we ought to be making moves and plans to eventually abolish public school and educate children, because that's something that we should do as a church. And I'll never forget the comment that he made. He told me that the only reason that I believed that is because I was privileged, which, it kind of took me aback for a bit because this guy knew me, right? And he knew I wasn't white. He knew I was Puerto Rican. But even more than that, he also knew that I had a humble upbringing. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I lived in the poor part of town. Eventually, because of the social justice of the time, I got bused to the rich part of town to go to school for a few years, and everybody hated it and all of that kind of stuff. But even if I was privileged, like even if I in a certain way I am, I grew up in a Christian home, so that's a tremendous privilege, and I do not shake my fist at God for that blessing. What he calls privilege, I call a blessing. But even if I was privileged, the fact that he didn't try to, criticize the truth of what I was saying, he just says, "Oh, you're privileged. You're privileged." This guy knew me. You know what I mean? I knew I was onto something, and at that moment, if you want to assign someone credit for me pursuing YouTube in a little bit more of a consistent situation, you can assign it directly to him, because at that moment I knew that evangelicalism had lost its ever-loving mind. In any case, this article is so funny. I'll link to it in the description. He starts off with a very kind of emotional thing. Well, my mom was a public school teacher. My son's a public school teacher, and their kids just love him, and they write all this stuff. Oh, you open the world to me. Oh, and then they spend all night grading papers and lesson plans and all that kind of stuff. And what I find hilarious about this is I'm sure that's all true. And the thing is, but Mark Wingfield here, his mind is so corrupted by the messianic nature of the government that he can't see that, if the government wasn't involved in public education, there'd still be teachers, right? And they'd still be touching the lives of children, and they'd still be grading papers all night, and they still would be planning their lesson plans all night, and all of that kind of stuff. And this is one of the points in my article. It's like the good parts of these agencies, like, yes, students do need to be educated. That'll still get done. We'll find a way to get that done because it's good work. The problem is when the government is involved in it, it necessarily corrupts. It necessarily starts teaching kids that, it's okay. It might be a good idea for boys to have sex with each other. Yeah, girls too. I mean, maybe a little gender bending in there too. I mean, that certainly sounds like a great idea. It necessarily starts promoting an upside down sexuality, an upside down view of creation, an upside down view of morality. It has to, and I'll explain why in the article that it has to do that. Public school can never be Christian. It can't. And the reason it can't be Christian is because it goes against the law of God to fund schooling through taxes. It goes against the law of God to fund schooling by taking money from your neighbor. You ought to love your neighbor as yourself. And so if you're lying about who God is and what he is like and what he's told us to do at the foundations of what you're up to, it's going to corrupt necessarily, and it becomes messianic. And so the idea here is that, and this guy, Mark, it's funny because this is what a lot of people believe about public school, but most people don't come right out and say it. Like at the end of this article, it's a very cringy article where he basically says that if you're against, if you're against teaching anti-white critical race theory at church, or at school, then you're racist. See, it's a racist thing to not want your white child to learn in school that white people are the devil. See, if you don't want your white child to learn that white people are the worst thing to ever happen to the universe, then you are the one who's a racist. That's what Mark Wingfield says. It's so funny. And the thing that's funny about this is that he still thinks this accusation has power. Like, he says it's racism. He's using this as if people care anymore about this. Like, I said this on Gab the other day, like, I don't care if people call me racist, but when I start to worry is when they don't call me racist. That's when I start to think, maybe I'm not actually right here because they're not calling me racist yet. See, if you want to know if you're right or not about something, just see if they call you racist for believing it. And if they do, there's a good chance you're probably right about it. And if they don't, you may need to reconsider. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a helpful sort of it's like a rule of thumb, right? It's a rule of thumb. That's what I would say about that. So he says it's racist, blah 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 blah. And then he starts like saying, well, this is Christian nationalism. And Christian nationalists only want a narrow view of what the world is like taught in public schools, but we got to serve the public and teach whatever. And he's clutching his pearls this whole time. And, we know like what they do teach at these schools, right? I mean, they teach, transgenderism, homosexuality and stuff like that. And I guess Mark Wingfield thinks that's a good thing. Like, we shouldn't actually be petitioning the states to actually teach true things about the world. No, we got to teach the upside down stuff. Like, maybe girls, if they chop off their breasts, can become boys. Like, maybe that's real. And so this guy, Mark Wingfield, is like, well, no, they should be taught that because, Christians ought not. It's anti-Christian to insist that they teach a correct worldview at public school. Now, a lot of people will respond to this, and a lot of people have responded to this kind of thing in the past, where it's like, well, just homeschool your kids. Get them out of public school. Enough of the public school. Just homeschool them. And I'm sympathetic to that. Yeah, I'm homeschooling my own children. I recommend it for anybody, absolutely, or a Christian school, private school, stuff like that. But, just because I'm homeschooling my own children doesn't mean that I want my tax dollars going to pay other children to learn about transgenderism and homosexuality and how white people are the devil. Like, I'm not teaching my children that white people are the devil, but I also don't want other children learning that white people are the devil. So we can kind of do both at the same time, right? Yes, pull your kids out of public school, of course, but absolutely make sure that your public schools are teaching true things about the world, because what they're doing right now is teaching antichrist stuff, and that's not a good thing, and we ought not want our tax dollars going to such things. And so this guy thinks that's evil, though. And what's so funny about this, at the end of this article, I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously, because this is insane. If you want to read it, it's good for a laugh, put it that way. Listen to this. He embraces the messianic nature of essentially the Department of Education or the local school board. Listen to this. He says, he's basically talking that Christians should not be seeking to influence the school boards. And he says,
we cannot let this happen. For the sake of all children, for the future of our communities and our nation, we must rise up to defend public education that lifts up the least of these among us and helps every child excel. Why? Because this is the very mission that Jesus said he came to earth to accomplish.
Did you hear that? He said that public education is the very mission that Jesus said he came to earth to accomplish. That's news to me. Jesus said the very mission that he came to earth to accomplish was not to save his people from their sins. No, absolutely not. Not to glorify God in everything. No, not to be an example of how to live and things like that. No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. Not to rule and reign forever. No, not that either. Not to destroy the wicked, crush the wicked kings and all that kind of stuff, beat down the doors, the gates of hell. None of that stuff. No, that's not what he said. Go to the Bible. He came for public education. It's news to me. I mean, I've read the Bible a few times, but maybe I missed it, But he actually quotes a verse. This is really funny. Here's the verse that he says. This guy, Mark Wingfield, proves that Jesus came in order to, teach children through, public funds, all kinds of, stuff. It may or may not be true, but just make sure to lift them up out of poverty. Here's what he says. Ready?
Read it for yourself in Luke 4:18-19.
I'm going to read this in normal voice because this is the word of God. He says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." That is a Bible verse. What does that have to do with public school? I don't know. I don't know, but Mark Wingfield is telling you it does. Let's go back to Mark.
When attempts to control public education do not amount to good news to the poor, the release of people held in educational captivity. Educational captivity!
That's the line. That's the line that did that one. Did it to me. When I first read this, I laughed for a good 10 minutes. And that's the line that did it. I was laughing throughout the whole thing, but that's the educational captivity.
The release of people held in educational captivity. The opening of minds to reality. And do not set minds free. The Spirit of the Lord is not there. Not to stand up for this Jesus agenda is insanity.
You know, this is one of the plays, by the way, where they say, if it's not good news for the poor, then it's not Jesus's agenda. So you basically judge what's right based on whether the poor likes it or not, right? So if you don't think you should raise taxes, and the poor don't like that, well then that's anti-Christ. That's anti-Jesus. Like if you don't think you should fund Planned Parenthood, and the poor doesn't like that, well, that's anti-Christ. And then you could take any verse about Jesus and taking care of the poor or whatever it is. In this case, it's proclaiming good news to the poor. And then you say, see, Jesus is for it. Jesus is for setting educational captive minds free. And it's like, yeah, but you added educational there. That's actually not really what he was talking about. Like, what in the world are you talking about, Mark? But anyway, this is the play. And so Mark, I mean, he certainly seems to be totally sold out to this. It's a false gospel. I mean, let's just face it. I don't know Mark. I'm sure he's a great guy. And some of you who might know him say he's the nicest guy in the world. Yeah, but he's got a false gospel here. A false gospel. I mean, he took one of the most important passages about the gospel of Jesus Christ and what he came to say, and he just twisted it all around to support public school, of all things. Like, probably most people, like when people read my article about NASA, a lot of people are going to get triggered. There's just no question about it, because NASA is a bit of a sacred cow, and I don't hold anything against you if you get triggered by it. Out of all the agencies that exist in the government, the Department of Education is the most obviously, overtly wicked of all of them. Maybe even more than the Federal Reserve, which I know is not a government agency, so I can save myself a few comments there. I get it, but it really is. Let's just face it. So, he's gone full into this. The state is the Messiah. The state can do no wrong. There's no criticism here of the Department of Education and what they teach and all of that. It's just, this is the Spirit of the Lord is here. This is a Jesus agenda to public school your children and to support public school. And it's like, man, like, anyway, guys, if you're Baptist, man, you guys have a lot of issues. That's not, well, I guess that's not really fair. I mean, Presbyterians have their issues as well. But I thought that was interesting. One other thing I wanted to just comment before I end for the day, I saw this, someone tweeted this out. I'm sorry, tweeted. I almost got that out of my vocabulary. Someone gabbed this out. And it's about Airbnb banning Michelle Malkin from, using their service and stuff like that. And basically what they do is they go to the SPLC list to see who's like the evil person, and then they use that list to say you can't use my service because you're evil. By the way, Gary DeMar's on that website. Gary DeMar, wonderful Christian man, is also on that list because he's against LGBT because he believes what God's law says about LGBT. Anyway. Point is, though, that I wanted to just make a quick comment. This is what it says. It says, the amoral liars of the SPLC get to decide where your family stays. Are you comfortable with that? Is this the kind of country you want to live in? And I just want to make a quick point because, conservatives are getting deplatformed, and it's only going to accelerate. I mean, especially as we further digitize our lives, it's very easy to deplatform you because, all you got to do is click a few buttons. They even Give, Send, Go. I think the donor list for the trucker convoy, which I'm again, I've had my doubts about the trucker convoy. The donor list has been exposed, and so now people can kind of, dox people and, put them on a list where they can't do banking, they can't go here, they can't take a hotel, all this kind of stuff. And so this is going to accelerate. Eventually I'll be deplatformed from some of this stuff. Maybe. I mean, who knows? I'm Puerto Rican, so I can probably get away with some of that. In any case, but here's the thing, guys. Like you can actually just say no to this stuff, right? Because if Airbnb doesn't want you on their platform, then stop using Airbnb. I mean, I don't know. Like this, I know that people say, well, you're just kind of black pilled. Obviously this is a problem. Yeah, it's a huge problem. But here's the thing, like. What they're trying to do is they're trying to offer you a cushy life, right? They're trying to offer you a life where you don't have anything holding you back, but the only thing that they require is that you bend the knee to whatever they want, right? So if they want to promote homosexuality, you got to promote homosexuality. They want to promote anti-white hatred, you got to promote anti-white hatred. They want to promote whatever it will be. You're going to have to do it, otherwise you can't use their toys, right? You can't use their hotels, you can't use their app, you can't use whatever it might be, right? Their fundraising platform, whatever. So what they're trying to do, this is the play. You got to see it for what it is. You know what it's like? Here's what it's like. Where did I hear this? I'm trying to give someone credit here. I forget who said this, but it's like the dirty old pedophile van that rolls up to your street and offers the kid the lollipop, right? This is what Airbnb is doing, GoFundMe. This is what all of these guys are doing. In the App Store, they're offering you the lollipop. And they're saying, look, take the lollipop, everything will be fine, right? You don't need that lollipop. You don't. You don't need, listen. Your life will be harder for refusing to bend the knee. In the past, you didn't have to go along with anything, and your life could be just peachy. That time is past, and so you won't be able to use their shiny new apps. You won't be able to use their stupid ride services or whatever it is, or their fundraising platforms or their banks or whatever it is. And the thing is, though, and the way to fight this is to not desire their stuff. You know what I mean? Because they've got control of a lot of stuff. And if you don't desire that stuff, they have no control over you. None. If you don't desire that lollipop, he'll never get you in that van. You understand what I'm trying to say? If you're not afraid of living a tougher life, then they don't get to decide where your family stays. You get to decide where your family stays. Look, this is the way I see it. It's like, if I knew that a certain company was racist against Puerto Ricans, I wouldn't go stay at that company, right? Like at that hotel. Like if there was a hotel room, a hotel company that hated Puerto Ricans, right? I wouldn't go stay at that hotel when I was traveling. I'd figure something else out. I'd either stay at another hotel, or I'd stay with family, or I'd stay in an RV or whatever it would be. But I wouldn't go there, right? Because I'm Puerto Rican. I don't like people. I don't like it when people don't think they hate me just because I'm Puerto Rican, right? I don't like that. Or if I had no choice, maybe I would stay. But the point is, they don't get to decide this, right? They don't get to decide this. We always have a choice. We always have an option. And you can just say no to this. You know what I mean? If you don't agree with Airbnb's, ability to do this kind of stuff, don't stay at Airbnb. It's just that simple. And it's like, well, what do I do? Well, there's other hotels. There's probably local places that are off the radar that you can use cash at and stuff like that. There's all kinds of things you can do. Will it make your life a little bit more difficult? Yes. Does it mean that we can't, fight against this stuff? No, you could fight against this stuff, but don't ever let this go into your mind. That's my point. It's about mindset here. And I don't want to be like a corny, it's all about mindset. It's not all about mindset, but this is such a defeatist attitude. The SPLC gets to decide where your family stays. No, they don't. They simply don't. Don't take their stupid lollipop. You don't need it. You don't need the cushy life. Oh, that was scary. I didn't even know what that was. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. God bless. Editing AD here. Sorry about the way that one ended. It was weird. I heard like a strange sound, like something scraping against my floor. And it turned out it was a Valentine that my wife threw under my door. So that wasn't scary at all. It was lovely. God bless.